John Miller, Chris Williams. From the Channel Seed Studios, it's Miller and Williams. Presented by Wild Rose Casino and Hotel. 3 locations in Iowa. 3 times the fun. You'd rather be here. This is Iowa Everywhere.
What's going on? Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Miller and Williams. Jovial John Miller joins me here in the Channel Seed Studios. We are presented, as always, by our friends at the Wild Rose Casinos in Clinton, Emmitsburg, and Jefferson. John, it's February 6th. You're all decked out in your Kansas City Royals gear. Congratulations, my friend. I'm a Braves fan, but I'm a longtime Royals fan too. And it was so painful living close to Kansas City as a boy. My grandmother and I would listen to Denny Matthews. We all have that relationship with a play-by-play guy. Mm-hmm. The problem with being a Royals fan for so long is you could never fall in love with a star other than George Brett in the post-George Brett era because they always left you.
Yes.
We had big news yesterday, and you are beaming with pride for your Kansas City Royals. It's great to see, my friend.
I'm
Bobby Witt Jr.
So happy. So happy. Bobby Witt Jr. And listen, this doesn't make the Royals a contender overnight, although they are in the AL Central. And frankly, the Royals spent more money than anybody but the Dodgers this year. And I'm not saying they loaded up on all-stars, but they made their roster better. They made the bottom of their roster better. And they won less than 60 games last year. So to me, if they can get like 75 this year, I'll be freaking thrilled. So I ordered a Bobby Witt jersey, first ever baseball jersey I've ever ordered. All right. I have been emailing someone I know there. I'm going to buy a partial season ticket package for the first time. And once they pass the referendum in April on the new downtown stadium, which I'm sure is going to pass, and I think a lot of these things the Royals did this year were because of that. I'm going to get full-on season tickets for when they're downtown.
Oh, wow.
I live like literally once they get the bridges done here in about 8 months, I'll be 6 minutes from downtown at any point in time. So yeah, I'm super excited. I love this city. Since the first time I came here, I loved this city before I even visited. I was 26 years old when I first visited it. But to me, as a kid, a lifelong Royals fan, Kansas City was this magical place where the Royals lived as a kid. And moving here, living here, this is my home. Certainly for now, but I love it. The city's pumped up, and I'm telling you what, small market team like the Royals doing something like this, it's the 16th largest contract in baseball history. All right. And it is a city that absolutely rallies around its sports heroes. Patrick Mahomes.
Well, yeah, we're going to get into that too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, part owner of the Royals. Patrick and his wife, Brittany, they're part owners of the Kansas City Current, a women's professional soccer team. I drive by the Kansas City Current Stadium on a regular basis. It's literally 6-7 minutes from my house.
It opens in March, right?
Pardon me? In March, yeah.
It opens up in March?
Yep, they got the turf in. I drove by it the other day. It's the first stadium ever built specifically for a women's professional sports team in the planet. You got the power and light down there. You got the new stadium juice going. It was announced the Kansas City's, we knew that Kansas City's would be hosting a World Cup, but they announced the dates. The Kansas City's in a quarterfinal in 2026. Man, I'm telling you what, Chiefs back in the Super Bowl for the 4th time in 5 years. Kansas City's on a freaking heater, my friend, but specifically for the Royals, this is how you get to where you don't have to pay the bad team tax anymore. The Royals in free agency, they have to pay more money for the same guys because these guys are going to come here and lose. And with Bobby Witt, obviously Vinny Pasquantino, he needs to, show that he can keep that bat after having his shoulder injury last year. But there's hope for a baseball franchise that I've been a fan of since the mid 1970s and for the better part of since 1987. It's not been a lot to cheer about.
I'll never forget that run though, years ago when they add all those guys and it all kind of just came together the way. And what was crazy about it is they actually missed on a lot of guys like Hochaver and there were a lot of these guys who we thought were going to be the next great Royals and just never turned out. Billy Butler he was okay, you know, like, but they weren't as good as we thought they were going to be.
Right.
But it all came together, and Dayton Moore, really good GM. I'm a big admirer of his. He's now like the president, right? He's not the GM, right? Is it?
Well, he's with the Texas Rangers organization.
Oh yeah, he left. Okay, I knew that he was out of there. Yeah,
and Dayton is a good human. There's no doubt about that. Dayton's, I think, fatal flaw with the Royals, even though he did put together a championship squad, gave us back-to-back World Series memories that I will cherish for my life, that brought my daughters and I closer together at a time when, you know, Grace was like 13, 14 years old, and it's hard to find things to talk about at certain ages with your kids. And the Royals and Star Wars did that for me and Grace. But he fell in love with this players too much. They should have traded the Executioner, Joaquim Soria, was rolling, and as opposed to saving 40 games a year for a team that's going nowhere and wasn't going to be going anywhere for 4 or 5 years. Needed to trade him. That he just hung on to people too long and didn't treat baseball like the business that it is. And it's hard. It's harder in a small market, but this is a huge deal. And Bobby Witt, for all intents and purposes and everything I've read, sounds like he loves the city. And I know this is biased. I don't know why you wouldn't love this city. It's just a great city. It's like, it feels like a big college town to me. And I can obviously speak to that.
If I ever had to move to a city, I would go to Kansas City. That would be the
you don't even feel
for me.
I don't like cities. I don't like big cities at all. I don't feel, I live literally, I can walk down the street 2 blocks, look to my left, and I can see the downtown buildings 4 miles away from me. You know, this neighborhood was a lot cooler before Travis Kelce moved out a few months ago because everybody's driving by his damn house. But it's a great time. We've adopted Taylor Swift now. The Grammys the other night, my family and I watched the Grammys for the first time ever, and Kansas City was the highest rated market for the Grammys.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. Dude, you don't understand it. Like, I never listened to Taylor Swift till a year ago. It's crazy.
My 8-year-old, my 4-year-old didn't really want to watch the Grammys, right? Which makes sense. She's 4.
She's 4, right?
And my 8-year-old did, because she's a Swiftie. And so I'm in my bedroom watching some cartoon that Elise is watching, and I was reading or working. I don't know what I was doing. And all of a sudden, I thought Cammie was injured. I thought something happened to, because she was screaming, and it was when Swift announced her new album.
Yes.
Like actual tears coming out of her eyes. Like it's wild. That Kansas City stat's incredible, though. I hadn't.
It is. It is. And Cammie crying, it's like, dude, you've seen all the there's been nothing like it since the Beatles, but Kansas City can't take full claim for that. But she's been adopted. I love it, man.
That's great.
This spring, when the cold lifts and we get spring, I just feel like this spring, I'm looking forward to it. It's like this city's going to just be buzzing. It's going to be great. I love it.
All because of Bobby Witt Jr.
Bobby baseball. And maybe the Chiefs in the Super Bowl too.
Oh, okay. Good stuff. Let's we don't have a ton of time today, but I want to talk about this Big Ten SEC thing and just touch on the Super Bowl as well, because you're a Chiefs fan. We can just start there because it's a natural progression right now. There's a lot of torn fans here in Central Iowa who are Iowa State fans who also root for the Chiefs because of Brock Purdy, and it's just been this beautiful ascent to the top for him.
Yeah.
The Chiefs thing, I'm shocked. When I watched them play 2 months ago, I didn't think there was any chance that this could happen, but it's just another one of those things in sports where it's like, oh, they flipped the switch. Like, these guys are that good. Like, Mahomes it's wild, because these are my 2 favorite players in the entire NFL, Purdy and Mahomes. Like, I love Mahomes. Anybody who's listened to me a long time knows.
Oh yeah, you've been on him since his college days.
There's a reason when Baker Mayfield, okay, number 1 pick in the draft, Heisman Trophy winner, Baker Mayfield is like, I'm out, because he saw this kid who was coming up behind him. He's like, I ain't beating this guy out. And he was right. And he knocks on Bob Stoops' door, and Bob's like, "Yeah, you can come play at Oklahoma." Guy's good enough to go and win a Heisman Trophy, be the number 1 pick at Oklahoma. But he looked at Patrick Mahomes for one season on the scout team and was like, "I'm good. I want nothing to do with that guy."
Right.
He's a generational talent, and the thing about him he seems like a really good guy. I don't know him, but he certainly seems like a guy who, like, when for the Kansas City thing, for instance, like for him to just go all in and buy part of the Royals, do the thing he did with the Current, it was like he was staking his claim in that city from day one, which again, like it makes it so much easier as a fan to know that the players are invested, more financially invested in it as you are. But I'm rooting for Purdy. I want Brock to get this because I also know what an offseason after a loss could be like with him, although I think that's gotten a lot better over the last couple weeks.
Right.
So, but where are you at on Mahomes, and how do you think this thing plays out?
Well, real quick, so I don't forget, the Purdy thing is like the guy just did things the last 2 weeks that I don't know how many quarterbacks in the league could do with San Francisco. That is not an offense designed to come from behind. And the plays that Purdy made with his legs last week, I mean, and to read the things that Shanahan says about him, guy doesn't have to answer any questions. But as far as Mahomes is concerned, this city, I mean, George Brett is my all-time favorite professional athlete. And George Brett owned this city. And for many years, he owned it, much to the demise of many fathers across the Kansas City metro area concerned about their daughters. But I think that Pat Mahomes is he has the keys to the city. He and Travis, and Pat is all in this community. You see him out. It's just not uncommon. He's and people don't mob him. It's like people haven't been mobbing Taylor and Travis other than just driving by Travis's old house too much. And it's just a really cool thing to see. It's a really cool thing to be a part of. And I know that sounds super weird. Like
there's still some small town to it, that vibe.
There is. And that's what I said in the previous segment is like this town feels like a college town. Kansas City is a big old small cow town. And Patrick is perfect for it. And he says the right things. He does the right things. He doesn't do the wrong things. He's married. He's got 2 young kids. He's a family man. He's built his little enclave out at Loch Lloyd Country Club. And, what was it back in the fall? I think I might have peed too close to his fence, but you had to go. Anyhow, it happens. So, yeah, Patrick is and this city are just intertwined. And, what I found interesting 2 months ago, I was concerned the same way you were, but I'm like, this defense is really good. So I think these guys can go. And I heard Travis Kelce talking about flipping that switch. I think it was on the podcast with his brother, the New Heights podcast, which I listened to for the first time last week, again, because of the Swift craziness. And it's one of the best podcasts I've ever heard. Their chemistry is amazing. But Travis was talking about his brother, Jason said, "You guys look like you flipped the switch." And Travis said, "You know what? It's hard. The regular season is so hard. It's such a slog." And to use Travis's own words, it's hard to get up for a random game in November when you know you're going to beat these guys by 3 touchdowns. And sometimes that's why you don't beat them by 3 touchdowns. Sometimes that's why you lose at home
to
the Raiders.
Too. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It happens. It's human nature. So, but then you get to the playoffs and that switch gets flipped, the intensity, the focus, everybody rowing the boat in the same direction. And it's a singular focus. And it's been amazing to see. Patrick has elevated his game to another level. The lack of turnovers. He's playing smarter this postseason, I think, than he has in the past. Since his horrible game against Cincinnati Bengals a few years ago in the AFC Championship game, Patrick in the postseason has been flawless. He's been flawless. Travis Kelce, everybody thought he was missing a step, or he's too distracted with that's just all stupid shit. It's all dumb. When they go on the field to play a football game, knowing that their careers could end any single play, I don't think that they're sitting there thinking about what box is Taylor in. After the AFC Championship game down the field, Travis is like, "Where were you guys sitting?" He wasn't like looking for him like we all look at things. Anyhow, that's a big old ramble, but yeah, man, I think it's going to be a great Super Bowl. I have my money on the Chiefs only because I don't want to be in a position where I'm rooting against them for the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I don't want to root for my tickets.
I'm rooting for the 49ers, but it's so hard for me. Imagine being a Minnesota Vikings fan, Southwest Iowa, where 75% of people are a Chiefs fan, right?
Yeah.
It was hard growing up with Chiefs fans. It just, and they weren't even that good, but they were kind of it. To accentuate your point, it was like when you're a Chiefs fan, you're like a college football team, that kind of a passion. It's not how I am with the Vikings. It's different. And I respect it, but it made me not like them going into adulthood. And now, I just have so many friends and family that are still Chiefs fans, and now that y'all have Mahomes, once you got Mahomes, it's I can't dislike this team. I find myself seeking them out in the 3:00 window and rooting for Kansas City.
Right.
So I'm actually on the Chiefs too. I pulled up the DRF Sportsbook app right now. You all should download that. Promo code Iowa 300, and that will get you. It's got all the details on there, but DRF Sportsbook. What I like about them, they're only available in Iowa, so they're very local based. They'll have props for all of the Iowa State guys in this game. It'll be great. But it's at +2 right now for Kansas City, and you just ride Mahomes money line at +107. That's the play. That's the smart play in this one. Come on, it's Mahomes, right? Especially with the way that the 49ers defense has been playing right now. And my read on it too, and again, I watch these 49ers games very intently. I think that this 49ers offense is so rhythmic and momentum based. I don't like having 2 weeks off with them because I think that they sat their guys, and it took them 2 weeks into the playoffs to finally get rolling in that second half against the Lions. I don't think that this layoff is any good for San Francisco. I think it matters a lot less with Kansas City. Give me Mahomes and Kelsey in that Chiefs defense in this game.
Well, you talk about the rhythm, and the 49ers had 2 weeks off, then 2 games, now 2 weeks off.
I hate it.
And everything about the Super Bowl for a lot of teams, it's just obviously it's different. But the Chiefs didn't get the bye week. They played 3 games. They probably are looking forward to an extra week off for that extra, impact on their body. But their game against Buffalo was incredible. Their performance against Baltimore was efficient. The first half, they left a lot of points on the field. They didn't score in the second half, but the Chiefs probably should have won that by 17 or 24. So they're playing really well. They're playing their best ball at this time of year. They've been battling through so many injuries on defense, and that defense continues to answer the bell. The offensive line this year, the amount of penalties that they had drove me absolutely up a wall. The number of drop passes they had, but boom, MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, he dropped. The Chiefs lost 3 regular season games because of drop passes. The opener against Detroit, I believe the pick 6 was a ball that went off a receiver's hand into the Detroit defender, and he scored a touchdown. And there were multiple other drops in that game. Travis Kelce also did not play in that game. The game against Green Bay, the drop right at the goal line. The game against the Eagles, another drop that would have won the game. The game against Buffalo at home, the Tony lining up offsides that negated the amazing lateral from Travis Kelce. I mean, that's 4 games right there just from stupidity. And MVS makes a huge catch against Buffalo. That's the game clincher. Then makes a huge catch against Baltimore, a really hard catch. So I don't know. They flip the switch. They're rolling, and I am not messing with the streak. I got like 9 wagers on this thing right now. Those are all my little. Well, you can't see it, but
I'm telling you, dude.
My wagers to track.
If you're rooting for Purdy, which many people in our audience are, you bet on the Chiefs money line, and you're going to win either way.
That's a great call. That's an emotional protection. You're still rooting for Brock. And listen, I'd be fine. If George Kittle gets a Super Bowl, Brock Purdy, that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, Kansas
They're
City,
a fun team to root for too.
They
I
are.
think
They're a fun
yeah.
team to watch. Their offense is the kind of offense that I wish Iowa would actually do. But
well, I don't think that's coming anytime soon, brother.
No, it's not. It's not.
Well, we're not getting into that today.
No.
There's so much of what that offensive coordinator said to Dolph that I'm like, it's the opposite of what Mike Leach would teach you. I realize they're not trying to do that, but it's just like if Leach is rolling over in his grave listening to him say some of those things. But okay, I digress. We can't go there right now.
I don't even know what you're talking about. And frankly, on today, I don't want my Bobby Witt high to come down. So let's not do it.
Well, again, it's like it doesn't matter though because Kirk Ferentz, they're not trying to run in there, right? Okay, like so. All I know is what good offense is, and a lot of the stuff they're saying is not conducive to it. But whatever. Miller and Williams were presented by our friends at Wild Rose Casinos in Clinton, Emmitsburg, and Jefferson. I'm going to bring Aiden Wyatt in real quick. Aiden is our producer. Hey, can we give away these Kane Brown tickets? Can you help me with this?
Let me pull it up quick.
We're going to give away some Kane. Do you know who Kane Brown is, John? You a Kane Brown fan?
I mean, I don't, but I'm sure I'd love to hear it. So can you send it over to me?
You know what? I guarantee you, if you text little Gracie and said, "Hey, do you know who Kane Brown is?" she'll know and like him. Okay. He's like a really new age country. He's not a country artist. People are going to try and frame him as country.
How do you spell his first name?
Kane. You know, like the Bible. Wait, is that with a K or it's Kane like the WWF guy? Hellfire and Brimstone. Yeah, Kane.
Not like the Bible.
That's not the Bible. That's not the
Kane from the Bible is Cain, right?
Right.
Was he the bad one or was Abel the bad one? You know this from your Bible days. You were a huge Bible guy there for a while.
Yeah, I can't remember. That's how much I've buried all that.
Was Cain or Abel the bad one?
This is America, 2024. None of us know.
Yeah.
Okay. Who wins the Kane Brown tickets?
All right. So 2 tickets and a $50 gift card for dinner on us to Kane Brown show at Wells Fargo Arena. Winners are, we have a pair here. Drew and Maggie Lindemann. So congrats to them. I will be reaching out to you.
Drew and Maggie going on a date.
Yeah. Courtesy of the Iowa Event Center.
Awesome.
So, yep. I'll reach out to you to get more
I
details.
love doing this, giving away tickets to people. It's such a cool promotion that they're doing with us. Okay, we're getting some thank you to English, all gas, no breakfast. Charles and Mark, who are all watching on YouTube. English says Cain dropped Abel.
Yeah, so apparently Abel and Cain had to take sacrifices to God, and God accepted Abel's sacrifice, but he did not accept Cain's sacrifice. Don't recall the specifics of it, but that had to be a big L for Cain, and I think it put him over the edge and led him to do some really bad things.
You know what's wild is you ever get like the baby's first Bible or whatever during baptisms?
Yeah.
And I read that to Cameron, and like some of these Old Testament stories that you're at the age of like 3 are really hard. So wait, he just killed his brother? Yeah, it happens, honey. You know, like it's a hard thing to explain to a 3-4-year-old. Like,
it is, yeah. And the whole,
my God, that's Cain's music.
Right, that's Cain's music.
Fuck, God, that son of a bitch.
Wait, Dad. God asked him to kill his son. Wait, everyone died in a flood. Can we go back to like the Marvel comics, Dad?
Yeah, I'll get back to the Peppa Pig.
Not good nighttime reading.
Do you have an opinion on this Big Ten SEC story? The big dogs are getting together. I've been told real quick. I'll let you go deeper on this, but yesterday and today is the day that all the suits in college athletics are, I believe, in Houston. I don't know if they're in Houston. They're somewhere. I'm sure it's at a fancy hotel and they're eating caviar and they got their suits on and 5-star hotel, that old deal. I've been told that the big thing with this Big Ten SEC alliance or whatever we're calling it had to do with revenue sharing in the new playoff. It was kind of just the big dogs are at the head of the table, and everybody else will fall in line. You will fall in line. You will listen to us. I think it got read into more like they're going to kick everybody else out and go soccer super league here. And I don't feel like that's what this meant at all. But this will end up in the rich getting richer and everybody else falling in line. What did you have an opinion on all this stuff in the last few days?
Maybe a little deeper. Not that you're not deep, but my thoughts on it. First of all, I don't think the Big Ten and SEC would reach out to the other conferences because it's only going to mean less money for the Big Ten and the ACC members because the other conferences aren't going to be able to. It's just, unfortunately, in this calculus, I don't think 1 + 1 = 3. I think that they are looking to protect themselves. I think they are trying to gather everyone together and say, look, whether you believe it or not, we may be facing an existential crisis. College football may be facing an existential crisis. I had a meeting with someone back just before the start of the 2022 football season. And this person, I know for certain, 100% certainty, was in the rooms. If this person was still in their position, they would probably be at this meeting in Houston that you're talking about. Okay. And he showed me a memorandum that all the Big 12 and other conferences had been discussing at meetings, but also in emails, FOIA time, about the future.
Why do they still do the email thing?
I don't know. The future of athletic departments and college athletics. And there were several scenarios. And the most common, and I was told the most widely accepted scenario, was that athletic departments, as it relates to football and basketball, those two sports break away from this current model being under the umbrella of an athletic department. And those two sports start their own for-profit entities. Let's call them clubs. The Iowa Hawkeye Football Club, the Iowa State Cyclone Basketball Club. They're their own for-profit entities. They lease the facilities back from the university, so they pay rent to play at Jack Trice or Hilton or Carver or Kinnick. They compensate their players. The athletes have to be in good standing, but I'm sure that without the I mean the bar is going to get lowered because we're no longer dealing with the NCAA.
How does that work? Like at Notre Dame, like does the Notre Dame chancellor just be like, we're going to lower everything now since you're not officially representing the university?
Yeah. I don't know how it looks. I'm not saying that's how it's going to play out.
I get it.
That is represent. And then there were other aspects, other contingencies, like how does this work with Title IX? All these things. But more than anything, that's not to say hang your hat on what I just said coming to fruition someday. Those are the conversations that these athletic directors, these athletic departments, these presidents have been talking about for many, 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 many years. And the biggest concern that I believe they had collectively is if players were ever deemed as employees and could unionize and could get together. And what happened yesterday?
Yeah, the Dartmouth basketball story.
Yeah.
Which the way I viewed that too is we've seen this with Northwestern before and it got shot down. Like this is a totally different climate in 2024. And this is the frickin' Ivy Leagues we're talking about. Like there's lawyers, there's really smart people working on this. That yesterday was catastrophic, really, if you're an NCAA guy.
Why is that?
Well, I mean, it lays the groundwork for everybody else.
Yeah. When you say you're an NCAA guy, you mean a fan of the
no,
NCAA
if you I mean, I'm saying if you're I'm trying to say if you're one of the people that is trying to preserve the old way of doing this.
Gotcha. Yeah. It wasn't a good day. And you're right. Northwestern had attempted this and they fell short.
But Dartmouth doesn't happen without Northwestern.
Correct. I was going to say Northwestern wasn't a failure,
No.
Northwest, tie it into all the challenges through all the decades of Roe v. Wade or any big piece of legislature. It's not the first hit that gets you. It's cumulative. The old Iowa break the rock. It's not the first hammer that breaks the rock. It's all the hammering that goes on. The last one just happens to break it, but that's not really the one that broke it. It's all the work that went in before, and you're right. And I think you want to get as many legal attacks on a problem, depending on your point of view, as you can. And then at some point in time, you break through. And each attack vector is a little different. You get the judgment on the ones where you didn't succeed, but now it gives you an idea of which angle you're going to go at it from. And this isn't going to stop. It is probably going to get to this point. And if it were deemed across the board that players were employees of these universities, I think that spells big trouble for university athletic departments, fandom for the way things were, because of the way things were will be done and never return.
Yeah, Dennis Dodd put out a tweet, and I could really resonate with it yesterday. He said something along the lines, I'm paraphrasing, but that our kids will grow up with what they see college athletics as will be a complete different scenarios to what we grew up with. Like, they're not even going to be able to recognize it.
Yeah,
for better or worse.
They're not. I mean, you had, was it in the early 70s maybe, when the NCAA finally allowed freshmen to be eligible to compete at the varsity level? I mean, so that was a big line of demarcation for college athletics. And then it's kind of been status quo until the BCS started, and that was the BCS era. And then all of a sudden you have the advances of technology and streaming in the world that we're in now. We no longer have the BCS. We have the college football playoff, and that's going to expand to 12. And, I was reading something about this Big Ten SEC thing too. Is like, it maybe sounds like there may not be the kind of money for the college football playoff that some people first thought there was going to be.
I have heard the same thing. And it feels to me like ESPN pulled a fast one on everybody, but we'll see. We'll see how that plays out.
Well, if the money's not there, the way
I think it's going to be good money. It's just, and it's only for 2 years, but that could be why the Big Ten and SEC are coming together and saying, well, we need to protect what's ours. And I don't even know if they're being unreasonable. Like, if they have more playoff spots than everybody else, then they probably should make more. But the problem is it stacks the deck even more, and it's already heavily stacked.
What if the Big Ten and SEC, I'm not saying this is going to happen, okay? This isn't some alliance like the Big Ten and Pac-12's, historic alliance a few years ago. But what if the Big Ten and SEC said, you know what, here's what we're going to do. The money's not there. We're the two alpha males in the room. And let's just do this. Let's have a regular season scheduling alliance where, in any year you have, 8 of our conference teams every other year plays 8 teams from the other conference, and that we alternate over time. And then at the end of the season, we have the 2 highest ranked teams from the Big Ten and the 2 highest ranked teams from the SEC play in a Final Four for whatever we call this championship. And then the other teams that are like above 500, we match those teams up in bowl games of new bowl relationships that we
sounds like
with.
European soccer where you're going here.
I wouldn't get that reference because I don't watch European soccer.
Well, they have all these like championships and it's wild. Like, well, if you qualify here, then you get to go and do this tournament. And
right. Okay. Yeah.
Here's the thing I'd say, though, where I would warn the Big Ten and the SEC.
I'm not saying I want that, by the way.
No, I understand. This would be the warning I would give you as a guy who roots for a team that's not in those conferences. The reason I will watch Ohio State and Penn State intently on a Saturday night is because my team has access there. My team, theoretically could see one of these teams in a bowl game or whatever, right? Like I think your TV ratings would drop. Like I think that, especially in the Big Ten's case, I think you've vastly overestimated how much the rest of the country is paying attention and how that could drop off significantly if they would shut them all out. Does that make sense?
It does. And to your analogy, you meant like watch like Purdue versus Illinois, not Ohio State versus Penn State. Sorry, I couldn't help it. That's the old John poking through. Sometimes I can't keep him down.
But even that though, John, like I'm serious. Like, and I think a lot of Iowa State fans watching would say the same thing. If you're not even competing with these teams anymore, no, I'd rather watch the Baylor-Houston game.
I think that's a really good point. And I don't want for what the hypothesis, or the hypothetical rather, that I laid out to happen. I don't want that to happen. But strange things can happen when people or businesses or companies or organizations begin to, for the first time, say, wait, we could be in trouble here. Big Ten, SEC, they've got all this money and they build all these buildings. And if the model changes, if players become employees of these universities legally, these universities aren't going to, that means the universities are going to have to pay these players out of the pot that they've been using to build all their buildings, to build all their 7 practice facilities, to do all these things, to increase their salaries immensely. There's not going to be that money anymore for those things, because they're going to have to pay every, scholarship player, like, I don't know, $20,000, $25,000, $30,000, $40,000. They're going to have to give them health benefits. They can collectively bargain at that point and collectively bargain for health benefits in perpetuity beyond their playing years. If they don't get it provided by another company, they'll be able to get it through their college athletic experience. All these things cost money. And right
this
now,
isn't the NFL. Like, not every game is pulling.
Correct.
Like they get really good ratings, and like there's a lot of money there. I'm not poo-pooing it, but this is not the NFL.
Right. And the NFL shares it equitably.
Yeah.
The Big Ten does a decent job of that, sharing revenues and dividing them up. And that's similar to what the NFL model. Actually, the Big Ten model is very similar to the NFL model in that, the Dallas Cowboys make more money than anybody else because they have a stadium that can seat 100,000 people.
Do they need 85 scholarships? Would be my question.
Well, you know what? I think another question would be, can they fund 85 scholarships? And I don't think that they could to still do the things that they want to do. They'll cut that down.
65. I mean, you're going to go to the FCS model. You don't need that many guys, especially when they're all transferring anyways. Like, this isn't – Iowa's a little different. You guys just aren't as active. Iowa State football really isn't either. Iowa and Iowa State football are a little bit – this is not Ole Miss we're talking about here. I'm saying, like, the days of – man – this Matt Sherman kid coming in is going to be really good, and then we're going to watch him, and he's going to get a couple reps versus Kent State, and then he's going to be our guy in 2 years, and like, it's just, they're gone, right? Like, these guys will just leave if they're not playing, and that's just the way of life currently in college athletics. I'm saying you don't need 85 scholarships in 2024, and if they've got to cut costs somewhere. Well, you take 85, 20 times 30, and that's a lot of money you're saving right there. And so it alleviates a little bit of Title IX pressure too.
So you're saying you don't need 85 scholarships because it's almost like you don't need a whole 20-person recruiting class in your developmental pipeline, because today's developmental pipeline is the transfer portal.
Yeah, they're all going to leave anyways.
It's not a bad point, because in the transfer portal, essentially, for the most part, for every Caden Proctor, there's 3 other tackles you've never heard of, and 2 of them aren't going to find a new home. For the most part, the transfer portal, I've been in sales organizations before where every year, at the end of the year, the managers look at everybody's account list, and they take the bottom 10% of their accounts that they sell the least to, and they basically They give them to somebody else. They shuffle the lower 10 around to see if a different salesperson's personality can extract value out of it. And that's what the transfer portal is essentially. It's everybody's swapping the bottom 10 to 20% of their rosters. With some, obviously there's the guys, the stars that get all the attention, but the majority of people entering the transfer portal are not stars.
No,
they're guys that are buried on the depth chart or did something they shouldn't have done and they got in the bad side of the coach. I think you have a really good point. I'd never thought of that. 65 doesn't seem like a bad number.
Especially like if you're going to have to pay their health insurance. Like I'm telling you, this has been my
here's
whole point.
Here's a problem. Schools that have very large NIL coffers, they're going to be able to pay these guys. Don't have a scholarship for you. You walk on, but we're going to pay you as though your scholarship, and that's going to create huge disparities.
Okay, so my rebuttal to that would be, I've been saying this for a year now, where it really hit me, where we're in this player power movement, right? With NIL, with the transfer portal, the way it's been done, while many are benefiting from it, I'm not necessarily sure it's the best thing for the players in most circumstances. And hear me out. Like sometimes too much power, especially at the age of 19, these brains in a lot of cases aren't prepared for the pressure, the angst that comes with because there's no protection for them. There is no union right now. There's nothing protecting these players from the Michigan State collective writing a bad check, right? They could just pull your deal. What happens if you have a deal right now that's worth $2 million over 4 years and this whole thing gets blown up in year 2? And now they're just going to pay you $30,000 because that's what's legal with the NCAA. It's not good for the players. So I guess my point would be, if we take it down to 65, I think in this new world, I don't think they're going to be. I don't think these collectives are even existing. Yeah, I don't think it happens. Yep. I think it's just all regulated now, and that's the way it should have been. And if the Iowa women's basketball team, they're all making $30,000, and that's Caitlin Clark's salary, but she wants to go out and her agent gets her a deal with Nike, she should be able to do that.
Right.
But this whole farce of what NIL, what they say, it's not name, image, and likeness. The backup, the fourth string tight end at Iowa State who's getting NIL money to be there, he's not worth that. They're not. Like, should they be paid for their time and yeah, absolutely. And that's what this is all about. But it's not name, image, and likeness. I guess my whole thing is, John, if we get to this point, will it actually matter? Will name, image, and likeness be real and not this facade that we see right now? I don't know. There's some deep thoughts.
No, that's really good. And you're right. The name, image, and likeness. Name, image, and likeness should just be freedom for the individual player to go out and negotiate endorsements based upon their name, image, and likeness, and not this like, hey, we got everyone's making donations and we're going to pay you the salary. Because if they are able to be employees, then that takes care of that. The salary piece takes care of that. So yeah, man. And then it's none of it's easy. I'm all for the athletes making all that they can and capitalizing on their popularity for the very short time that they're going to be in college. Like we've said before, there's a number of these guys that are, like say an Austin Arnott, had a great career, a local boy, a good human being that might not have translated into a ton of money on the NIL, but it would have translated to some from local businesses. No doubt. But also for him, after his playing career, I'm not exactly certain what Austin Arnott's doing right now, but he could have had a career in insurance or things of that nature that are public-facing things based upon the popularity that he gained. There's a great deal of value in that. Because someone like Austin could probably get in a relatively short time, probably make $250,000 a year building out an insurance book over about 5 years. And I'm not Austin and several players like that. like Nico Raggiini. I mean, he probably could. I mean, he's not going to probably play in the league, but he could probably be successful. That's why a lot of these guys go into medical device sales or medical sales or pharmaceutical sales or insurance, because there's a huge value in it. So there is value, but man, it's just, it's changing really fast. And you're right, Chris. I think in about 10 to 20 years, we'll look back and say, man, remember the good old days.
Yeah,
when we bitched about the who was the fourth or fifth best team and didn't get in the playoff.
We were just pissed about uneven schedules, and
we were pissed off about, really famous basketball players like Cheryl Swoops making dumbass opinions, uninformed, and digging in and tripling down and banning everybody on Caitlin Clark.
Appreciate you, man. Get out of here.
All right. We'll see you,
bud. You got important propane stuff to get to.
Always.
He's John Miller. My name is Chris Williams. We are always presented by our friends at the Wild Rose Casinos in Emmitsburg, Clinton, and Jefferson. And of course, we sign off today from the Channel Seed Studios. Have a great rest of your Tuesday here on Iowa.